Uh, I am resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Jules Sains. That is my buddy Gordon Dymowski. That's my buddy Patrick McCray. That's my buddy Alan Gallant. We are here to review episode 675, chosen by Alan Gallant, written by Sam Hall, directed by Leela Swift. Um, so this is where Chris Barnabas discovers they basically put two and two together. Chris is the werewolf. He gets hauled in for questioning, like any good solid citizen should. Um,
Fortunately, it's by Sheriff Patterson, so nothing will come of it.
that's right. That's right. Alan, first, why'd you pick this episode, man?
Well, I have a sort of fascination for all things werewolf, especially when it comes to Dark Shadows, because it was kind of something that Dan Curtis didn't want to do, which I find interesting. And every kid that watched the show at the time were like completely flipped out. So, and it's also a great story because he's another outsider, for Barnabas to sort of figure out a way to team up with a little bit eventually, after beating the crap out of him with his cane a few times. Good practice for 1897 anyway.
Yeah.
But it's really that kind of drama where the secret is slowly being figured out by, fortunately for our hero or our anti-hero, by people that are sympathetic mostly to his cause. Julia, not so much, although she comes around.
What is she sympathetic toward anyway?
Yeah.
Nothing but Julia.
That's right. Nothing but Julia and that bag of drugs. But also, I sent you guys, and I'll just refer to it here. I sent you guys a couple of PDFs in
I saw
the regular messaging. There was an actual literal reference to this episode by somebody from Flip Magazine who went to the studio on that very day that this episode was recorded and took a bunch of really cool pictures and talked to Fred and some other people. And for me, it's fun because of that, and it's a pivotal episode because now everything's going to start click, 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 and we've got an extra reason to go to 1897.
Yeah.
And it's sort of a release for everybody in the audience that kind of likes this guy. It's not his fault. Blah blah blah. So now he's got somebody on his side. Although he's going to go through a lot more hellish stuff before 1897 and the attempt to help him out along with David. But it's a storyline that unfortunately never gets fully resolved because we kind of go away from all of that when we go to parallel time and 1840 and so on, and also because Chris Jennings' character by necessity has to leave the show because Don Briscoe left the show in 1970. So an interesting story for those fans that don't know is that Don Briscoe was very good friends and a Columbia classmate with Roger Davis, who talks about him at great length and his difficulties, because he had some personal difficulties, as well as his genius for acting. Talks about him at great length on a podcast called Literary License Podcast, episode 222. So I wanted to refer to that because that'll give you a lot more information about Don Briscoe, the man. But so again, this is a point of fascination for me since I was about 8 years old. The whole werewolf storyline, and plus this does pivot some things into focus for what's happening. So Sam Hall is doing his usual alchemy in that respect.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing about the werewolf specifically?
As a kid, he titillated and terrified at the same time. He wasn't so grotesque that he would like make you run screaming from the room, but he was grotesque enough to make you have interesting dreams sometimes. And I had very vivid dreams as a child. And as a matter of fact, a brief story. After one of these werewolf attacks that happened during 68, early 69, I had a nightmare in which my older brother, who was just graduating from high school, and well, actually, he was in first semester college this time, still living at the house off and on. And he discovered me behind the door of my bedroom going, help, help, the werewolf's going to get me. I was sleepwalking. I was somnambulant.
Oh.
And my mother told me I couldn't watch the show ever again, but because of begging and wheedling and sidling, within 3 days I was watching the show again.
Nice, nice. What did you guys think of this episode, Gordon?
I thought it was a really good episode. I think it's the show doing what it always did best, was to deal with the effects of the supernatural on, everyday people. I will say that I'm glad that Dick Wolf was not working in production at that time, because I could easily see Dan Curtis unsuccessfully trying to pitch a Law and Order Collinsport.
Yes.
Because Patterson is not that he's not, the gravitas that Dana Elcar brought to the role is gone. He's like,
this is Vince O'Brien, the actor playing one of the 4 actors, I think, that played Patterson at different times, because Elcar was on and off. He was Patterson number 1, but you're right.
And it's like, I think too, there are scenes you don't normally see in like werewolf movies, like the actual, you find the body, you deal with the police. It's usually shortcut to the police chime in. But it also builds, because it's this, okay, Chris suspects something's up. He's trying to evade the police. Then Barnabas and Julia are like, we've got to help him. Especially Barnabas, because I think it's the, I think on some level it's like hey, I'm a vampire. I get it.
Even though he's not right now, but he has like a guilt identification. He understands that the guy doesn't mean to do what he's doing, so he understands that helplessness of the supernatural curse that he's under.
Yeah, and this episode, it's like a lot of episodes of Dark Shadows during this time. They remind me of and this may be pulling some straight out of my ass, which is a good place to pull things.
Well,
but,
why not?
It reminds me of one of the rules that Edgar Allan Poe had for short stories, which is you make every word count and you lead to a single effect. And a lot of Dark Shadows episodes around this time are starting to get that. Like, when Angelique cursed Barnabas, when Joshua chains Barnabas into the coffin. And this is one of those where it's like, yes, they have to get from point A to point B, but it's the way they get from point A to point B that's interesting.
Arriving at the purpose, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. Patrick, what did you think of this episode?
I thought it was a humdinger. I think it's always great to see Chris suffer, because we can identify with him. And then there's the wonderful cliffhanger of Barnabas, essentially outing him, but we don't quite know where it's going to go. I think Nancy Barrett's also very good in this episode. Responding to the death of her friend, and I like the idea that rather than just kind of blindly react or work from fear or rage, we get to see something very new with Barnabas here. He's really trying to calculate how to solve this problem for someone else, and I like that. This is very much a post smashing the controls to revive Eve Barnabas, where it's not just enough for him to not do evil. He has to actively be involved in doing good.
Right.
So this is one of the most important steps in his ascendancy to heroism,
Yes.
which will reach its sputtering climax in 1897
Yeah.
with Kitty Hampshire,
Mhm.
and that ending sequence where then everything comes crashing down on him again, because literally he is kidnapped by the Leviathans. He's threatened with Josette's ghost and all this other stuff.
He's disempowered at that point
Yeah,
from his
and
heroic.
and figuratively, it's because he hasn't forgiven Angelique.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what's going on. That's why
Yeah, especially in retrospect. Yeah, especially in retrospect.
Oh yeah, it's all in retrospect. Yeah. And as I've said, Dark Shadows gets accused frequently of repeating itself. And I don't see it that way exactly. I see it as a corkscrew. And if it does cover itself, it's covering itself with these challenges again and again to see how does someone who's spiritually evolving deal with the same problem again, and it's going to be different.
Yeah. I think from a storytelling standpoint, it's smart. I mean, you have a really talented actor in Don Briscoe giving you the human effect and human emotion of, I'm coming off of, being a werewolf. He has headaches. He has no memory of what happened, which is smart. This isn't quite what Barnabas went through, because it's not. It's a werewolf. It's not a vampire. And though my philosophy with werewolves is different than with vampires, the only good werewolf is the one you put a silver bullet into.
Not a vibrating one.
No,
that's the
rotating one.
Yeah, I've seen The Howling, but okay.
Particular.
But that's the thing too. I really do enjoy another sympathetic character. It puts Barnabas. Also, too, what I feel the writers don't get enough credit here for it too is you have to have Carolyn identify the body of her friend, which brings a sense of realism and reality to all the horror and fiction fun. Really great job there. And though, did I believe they were ever going to kill Barnabas off no, but he's mortal now, and he's in even more danger than he's ever been in, being mortal. And he's taken a lot of risk still.
I think the stakes are equally set high by Nancy Barrett's performance at the beginning of the whole thing. So
yeah, because you don't normally see that kind of scene in a werewolf drama. I mean, it's. I was thinking about this because I was reading some other information about the episode, and I think for a certain segment of fans, they see Dark Shadows as a horror show, the way we would think of. And I think what it does is it's not. I don't think it's purely horror because it mixes in other influences. But one of the things that it tries to do is to build that sense of how devastating it is through Barrett's performance, because this isn't just, oh, my friend's dead, I'm upset. Like, you can see the tension and the denial, and every time they do a close up on her face. I mean, she looks older with every shot, and that's not meant as an insult. It's because it's just, you can see, like, there's part of me that thought, that character in 20 years, show wise, would end up becoming her mother. She'd end up being the lady in Collinwood and not dealing with the outside world.
Possibly. She also does a great job in the scene in the cottage when she confronts Barnabas and Julia as well. Insisting that they need to throw their loyalty behind Chris, since they don't know any more than she does about what happened. Of course, they do know, and they're going to throw their loyalty behind him anyway. So that's another fun little scene.
Yeah, plus Julia gets to give sedatives to other people. I mean, hey.
She's good at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, now, and this is related to our pre-show talk, she'd probably be throwing out opioids just for the hell of it. It's like, yeah, have some fentanyl. I don't care.
Yes, have 30 grams of fentanyl. I also enjoy when she's left to her own devices in the cottage, and she picks up the newspaper and starts reading it, and then does the little take off to the side and realizes that a purse is there. It's awesome.
Yeah, you got the bloody Barnabas carrying out the bloody shirt. You got the purse underneath.
The purse that she's gonna stash. Yeah. The whole thing. Well, they made their decision. Once they make their decision, that stuff is gonna have to be dealt with.
And who gives Chris his alibi? Our buddy Barnabas.
Barnabas, who has somehow become the absolute paragon of witnesses in Collinsport, at least according to Vince O'Brien.
Oh, you were out drinking late, and you stayed the night at Mr. Collins's?
Yeah. Hey, you couldn't have a better alibi in the entire town. And this is the last time we see Sheriff Patterson, by the way. This is it. Sheriff Patterson will be no more. There will be other sheriffs, but no more Sheriff Patterson.
Here's a question for you guys. How, not Sheriff Patterson, but how would you write a sheriff of Collinsport?
Yeah, let's see. Probably give him a more fitting kind of local color name of somebody that lived on the coast of Maine. Mayo is a good name. That's one of the names that pops up a lot down on the coast. Jones, Beale or Alley. There's a whole town full of them called Jonesport. It's full of, 90% of the people that live in the town are all Beals or Alleys. I don't know if they get outside bloodline or what's going on there, but those names are very, very Maine coast names for sure. And he would be absolutely salt of the earth, local guy.
Yeah. Gordon?
Excuse me. What I think I would do, I would probably write the sheriff of Collinsport as I'd probably write him as someone who didn't want to bring in outside people. He'd probably want to solve everything in house. One moment. Sorry about that. So, if someone said, "Oh, we need to call the state's attorney or the DA," he'd be like, "Hell no.
Let's not do that yet." Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think that I think he would probably think of a rational explanation for everything else. Like for him, he'd probably try to profile the Collinsport Strangler. It's not a werewolf, it's just a wild dog. So I think I'd write him as someone who, he's smart, but he also wants everything. He doesn't want outsiders coming in because he's the sheriff. He's in charge.
Well, he screwed up so much. He knows that, he's got people in Collinsport kind of kowtowed, and, they're but an actual law enforcement person coming in, looking at what's been going on in the town, to what he's turned a blind eye to, it's, it might as well be played by Stevie Wonder.
Really? Detective Benson shows up in Collinsport and says, "What the hell are you talking about? Barnabas Collins is verified his whereabouts. Come on, look at this murder. Come on."
Hey, there's no better character reference than Barnabas Collins.
That's right.
Hey, but you know what? What the Collinsport Sheriff's Department really needs? They need a Lenny Briscoe. They need someone opposed to Patterson who's like the jokey, seen it all. It's like, yeah, of course it's a vampire. Of course it's a werewolf. And Patterson's like, no. Yeah, we probably should. It's like we probably should bring in the district attorney, and Patterson's like, no, we got this.
Yeah. I would say have the sheriff where they're born with the soul of a legendary monster hunter in them, and they happen to move to Collinsport, so they believe in monsters. They carry silver bullets, all that stuff. The only sheriff I ever wrote for a Colin Sports story was the Hell on Halloween Night, and it was Sheriff Hatcher Stevenson, and he was a very rough individual with his prisoner, one John Tate, because he hit him over the head with his gun. So the
pistol whipped him.
Yeah, he did. He knocked him unconscious. So,
Tough guy. Well, that's one of the things that makes Sheriff Patterson work or not work, depending on your point of view, is that he is a firm disbeliever in anything supernatural.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Dark Shadows, he isn't the only one. Dark Shadows is full of doubting Thomas.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
you have to have some kind of a wall between, the so-called regular people, the non-supernatural people and the supernatural, in order for things to operate. And then every once in a while, somebody comes through that permeable cell wall and goes into the other side,
I forget, it's not on Dark Shadows, and I forget the show and character says it, and it's going to kick me. But there was a show I was watching one day where somebody was saying something, and the guy who was a cop, he looked at the guy and said, okay, convince me it's real. And that's sort of a lot of the characters in DS. It's like, okay, convince me it's real. And really, you can't blame them for it. No. It's like, okay, you haven't. Liz sees the seaweed of the ghost of Bill Malloy. Okay. She goes, she believes Vicky's story to a degree, but it doesn't necessarily cause her to become a full-on believer. Right. And you can have that sort of yin and yang in a character where, okay, I believe her story, but I'm not necessarily jumping over. Okay, there's ghosts. No, not necessarily. So, what do you guys think? Sorry, I was rambling on there.
No, that's great. And I mean, you have other people that have responded differently to passing through that cell wall, so to speak. Like when Joe Haskell does, he goes crazy.
Yeah.
And when others have done it, they maybe don't go crazy, or they maybe rationalize it in some other way. Again, this allows the drama to function and to peak and come back down again and so on. So it's a good dynamic to have for a serial.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is too, and that's what makes Dark Shadows. That's another thing that makes Dark Shadows fun. With all the, Barnabas knows there's real shit out there. He's seen it. He knows, he's experienced it,
and he knows it specifically too. He and Julia know it specifically for what it is. I mean, Carolyn and Liz and several other people have had experiences with, say, the werewolf, which we were talking, I mean, that's the episode we're dealing with. But they formulated it in a more unknowing way. Oh, it's that beast that walks like a man. He must be hunted down and killed. They don't go further and say, oh, wait a minute, he's a lycanthrope, for God's sake. He is a man sometimes. That's what we should be looking for. They don't go that far. They realize that what they're dealing with is bizarre and unexplainable in some way to them because of what their experience is. But they don't go all the way through that wall and have a realization.
I do feel how Dark Shadows did their werewolf story was, at least for the most part, better than the Universal movie, the original Wolfman. Because the Wolfman was just great because of the success of Dracula.
Larry Talbot's.
The
thing that they did also is that they spooned the werewolf out in small doses. They didn't have it. Every once in a while you'd get an outbreak or an outburst. And one of the best stunt scenes in the entire show involves a werewolf. So
and I think it also helps that they used Alex Stevens, who was a stunt guy. Or it's a much more dynamic. Because like when you see the original Wolfman movie, part of the horror isn't just it's not just the Wolfman attacking people. It's more about Lon Chaney realizing what the hell's going on here.
Right.
And I think in a show like Dark Shadows, you don't necessarily have that luxury. Like you have to show the werewolf.
Mhm.
But if you're going to do it, they make it count.
Right.
No one is more physically athletic, dynamic, fit than Lon Chaney Jr.
Yeah.
In his prime, he was.
In his prime, but not when he was making Wolfman. He was very like, I just want to die.
Yeah.
Just like insomnia, Julia. I need something to counter the insomnia.
Yeah.
What can you give me? Something. Make me
More
sleep.
pills.
Pills. I just need pills, Julia, and a big stone door. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what werewolf scared me the most as a kid, honestly? And it was when he was a human. He's on the payphone. He's calling the dad of the kid of the Monster Squad. He's gonna kill your son, and that's fucking terrifying as shit.
What about Tom
for
Atkins?
Kid, especially?
What about Tom Atkins?
Oliver Reed is my most terrifying werewolf because he was like that in real life. I mean,
it required no makeup.
Yeah.
Just a few drinks and a talk show to terrorize the world.
And I think we should do an episode that teaches people the difference between Oliver Reed and Brian Blessed.
Yes.
Well, one more frequently has a beard.
Mm-hmm.
Her name was Chandra, and no, but yeah, that's now why didn't they ever team up?
It would have been like matter and antimatter.
What about there was a production of La Cage aux Folles in London with Oliver Reed and Brian Blessed that was truly remarkable.
Well,
Brian Blessed walks on. Where's my negligee?
Exactly.
Well, rumor has it that Brian Blessed was up for the Alan Bates role in that one movie where they wrestled.
Yeah.
Women in Love.
Women in Love.
Yes.
Was that really true?
And men sort of in love.
I could see it. I mean,
yes.
So you may be making the haha or not.
I'm making a haha.
Okay. I guess it's because it's what I want to see.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. A vast expanse of Brian Blessed. And,
climbing the Himalayas every
right.
year.
Which he has done. At what was he, 65 or 66?
He still does. As far as I know, he does it every year.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, he was actually the best part of a really crappy Doctor Who story in the 80s.
Was he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's dressed as a samurai, and he makes snake noises on occasion.
No wonder you love the show.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Oh shit. Oh Jesus.
You know, you can love your serious Doctor Who, but you can love it for the fact that the script of this one story is garbage, but Brian Blessed, samurai outfit, makes occasional snake noises, and his ending scene is that he runs in with he's got this gun. He yells no, his face just opens up and he fires.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what we call craptastic or scrumptious.
Brian Blessed looks like, especially when he's laughing, it looks like his jaw unhinges like a snake, and he can swallow an infant.
That's right. He can do. He could have been Imhotep in the '99 Mummy movie, right?
It would have been so good. It would have been so good.
Yeah. Yeah, he could have been. Is there anything you guys want to add about this episode before we go?
Yes. Imagine Brian Blessed as Professor Stokes. Not about this episode, though.
Yes.
Or the werewolf coming through the window at the blue whale. That would.
And you wouldn't need any makeup either.
No, it's just coming through there. Roar!
The actors are coming. Yeah.
Oliver Reed at the blue whale.
Well, that would be appropriate, actually. Underneath the table.
Oliver Reed and Burke matching drink for drink.
Oh, God.
I'm not talking about Curious George either.
No.
I'm talking about the real Burke, Mitch Ryan.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Curious George.
Yes. Okay, so here's the thing. God bless him. He's no longer with us, and so we can mock him. I mean, so
Octavia.
we must think. Well, Anthony George looks a little like he has some makeup done by John Chambers. He just a little.
Yeah.
You got to admit, there's something a little kind of simian about him occasionally, and that's why the Curious George thing really fits.
It was more so when he was a little bit older and he was on One Life to Live.
Oh, really? Did he get even more so?
He was on.
He was playing the
he was on
Lawgiver
One
by
Life
that
to Live.
point.
Played Will Vernon, I think.
I'm sure he
on
did.
One Life to Live for a number of years. Yeah.
There's all sorts of questions about what Will Vernon will do.
Well,
Yeah.
Got married to a woman on that show, so that was a lavender marriage, even for the show. What are you gonna do?
You got one life. You got to live it.
You gotta live it. Yeah. Do you know that the original opening for One Life to Live was the fireplace from Dark Shadows?
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's where Sam Hall and Gordon Russell ended up after Dark Shadows ended.
It's correct. Yeah, they did. Because they were all still in New York back then. So.
Do you think it was boring? Do you think it was boring for them a little bit after Dark Shadows, or was it a relief?
Well,
it might have been a relief for Sam Hall. He talked about how he'd never been a horror writer before, and it was a little uncomfortable. In interviews, he talked about that. So it might have been a relief for him more than a missing it. I think some of the writers probably missed it.
Yeah,
because it was exciting.
Yeah, and One Life to Live at the time was known as one of those. The terminology was socially relevant soap opera.
Oh yeah, yeah. They had interracial relationships and gay people on the show, and various other storylines that had to do with more controversial topics of the day. So
yeah. This has been a fun episode to discuss, guys.
And other things.
Nothing tomorrow, so I'll see you guys. Let's see, Thursday. I'll see you guys Thursday.
What are we talking about Thursday?
Whatever you want.
Do we want to do a full length this time? We talked about maybe wanting to do a feature film.
I have one in mind. Isn't it Pride Week around the country? Somewhere around now, or was that in June?
No, it was last month.
Last month, right? Yeah.
Well, it's Pride
that's close enough. That's close enough.
Let's talk about Can't Stop the Music.
Can't Stop the Music. I swear to God, I thought you were going to say The Birdcage, but that's a good one.
Can't Stop the Music. It's one I wanted to see Jewel discuss for years.
Oh, yeah.
Jewel, you can't stop the music. Nobody can stop the music.
I've never seen it.
Welcome to the 80s.
You will enjoy the acting talents and genius of Steve Guttenberg.
Guttenberg, Bruce Jenner, Paul Sand.
Bruce Jenner?
Bruce Jenner, by God, in a crop top.
Yep. This was during the golden age of these kind of disco musical extravaganzas.
Oh, okay.
The 70s and early 80s.
Don't get too excited.
I mean, there's a ton of them, and they all had sort of shoestring plot lines and lots of action and lots of intrigue and relational intrigue and music for days.
And lots of cocaine.
Yes, usually off stage if not on. So yeah, it was the golden age.
God.
Thank God it's Friday. I mean,
the apple.
God.
The apple.
The apple.
Oh, I love the apple.
Yeah.
So it's Can't Stop the Music for Thursday night.
Yeah. You guys have a safe Wednesday, and I'll see you Thursday night for Can't Stop the Music. Link to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows Daybook and Battle will be in the description box. Link to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page and website will be in the description box. Link to Alan Gallant's YouTube channel, Collins Support After Dark, will be in the description box.
My channel is still active, even though I haven't been for a while.
You can't miss the Patofe statue in front of Alan's house.
Well, the Count Patofi's werewolf spray.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. The big sign out there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh,
I'm selling it now for $4.99 a can. So.
can't wait for Alan's next video.
Right outside the old mill stream, okay? Abandoned mill, Sutter's Creek.
I do have a question for one of your videos. What's the hardest find for a fan when they're trying to collect? What's something hard?
There are two things that I would consider to be ultimately the hardest find.
Okay.
Not and probably the most expensive find.
Okay.
Outside of actual relics from the show.
Yeah.
One of them would be, there's a set of originally they cost 39 cents a piece, magic slates that Whitman did in like 1969, and those are incredibly rare.
Yeah.
And very expensive they would be to purchase. And the other thing is just the mask of the Barnabas Collins Halloween costume goes for $500. So a complete costume, you're talking $1,500 to $2,000 easily, depending on the shape it's in.
Wow.
Yeah.
So those are the first things that come to mind when I think of that. The original Josette's music box is now going for $500 a pop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
That is crazy. Mm-hmm. All right, guys, this has been great. You guys have a safe night and take care.
Okay, bring the poppers.
Can't stop the music.